Hello and welcome. Another edition of The Process, where Coach Jeremy Fouts and myself, we talk a little bit about the preparation, all of the topics that are basically relevant from the age of 12 all the way up and through and into college with regard to recruiting, high school ball, travel ball, all the nutrition, strength topics, anything that has to do with your student athlete's process with regard to youth athletics. Today, our topic is going to be the early years, those years from transitioning from the small diamond, age of 12, right up and through the sophomore year of high school, which is what I call those JV years leading into the varsity years of high school and into, obviously, college recruiting. Today, we are going to be joined by a parent, someone that is in my neck of the woods up here in New England, in Massachusetts, central Massachusetts. And I've been working with his son, Cole, for the last 4.5 years. Mark Lonergan is a parent that reached out to me several years ago when Cole, I believe, Mark, was just turning 12. But first and foremost, thank you so much for joining Jeremy and I today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I thought Cole would be the poster boy, so to speak, with regard to when the white noise begins for those student athletes that are transitioning from Little League or the youth travel with the smaller fields going into that big diamond. And I would like to start with, if you can think back, what was it that led you to kind of reach out in our initial dialogue as it pertains specifically to Cole? Like, where was Cole at, and what was your intention when you first reached out?
I wanted an edge in a certain way. And so I was a little misled in reaching out to you, but you set me straight. And he was in a point where he's doing travel ball, was doing Little League, but I'd say wasn't really having the best time keeping up, or maybe his skills were lagging a little bit behind. And I heard you talking about the process, and I thought, well, this makes sense. And then as we worked with you and over the years, and even during that first 6 months, you really helped me understand how it's a long journey and nothing is instant. And it's about allowing a kid to have their own path within baseball. Not sure if I answered that.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know, Walter, I don't want this to hurt your feelings. I know you are the recruiting guru. And I tell everyone, Mark, when they have a kid around 12, 13-year-old, you don't need a recruiting plan necessarily. You need a nutrition plan.
Mm-hmm.
And you need, Walter will take care of you later on, but you can't do a lot with a small, undersized, underdeveloped athlete. So what was the biggest thing that you have saw on the nutrition side when Cole really started putting on the right type of weight and understanding the importance of getting the right calories in, the right protein, carbs, and fats?
I mean, I saw his energy levels increase, really. I saw him get more confident as he started making gains in the gym. We had gotten in with a strength and conditioning specialist at age 12 through the travel program he was involved in. And, once we got the right amount of food into him and the right types of food into him, everything changed.
Yeah.
And every single week it was like, Dad, I did this in the gym. Dad, I did that in the gym. And from there it was just a snowball effect, because him seeing the gains, both on the scale and in the gym, made him more excited. He was getting a return on that work that he was putting in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of parents, Mark, are under the false impression that it's too early. There's going to be potential injuries. It's going to delay growth. But in reality, the pivotal time for athletes, and I've said this to you and Cole on numerous occasions, the biggest and single most important time for young athletes is that 12 to 15, 16-year-old time period, because those that have put the time in and built their foundation, they then can build and prepare for the varsity in college, whereas the other athletes are always playing catch up, those high school athletes. And so can you talk a little bit about that, maybe that early time period, particularly at Cressy? Was there an intimidation factor, or was it an immediate acceptance of, this is something I can do, and I'm going to just slowly integrate myself into this routine and really make the best of it?
I think there may have been a little intimidation at first. He was 12 years old going in with high school and college age athletes, some adults there, but they really do an excellent job of making the kids feel welcome. So I've told you this before. Even Morgan McSweeney, who was in AAA with the Orioles at the time, would go over to Cole and say, "Hey, tell me about baseball. What are your favorite teams?" and do trivia with him. So there were he got over that hesitation pretty quickly, and it turned into confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as the volume of food, Mark, number one, when I'm working with parents and I get their athlete on a nutrition plan, they're like, "Man, my son was not eating near enough," and they're just overwhelmed by how they was getting underfueled. And was that hard for Cole in the beginning to recognize that, hey, if I want to become the athlete I need, and if I want to push myself in the gym, I've got to eat the amount of food? Was it hard for him from a consumption standpoint, from the word go, of fueling his body correctly? Because this is something a lot of parents, they're a little bit kind of nervous. They're like, how is my son going to fit in all these snacks and all these meals? Was that a little bit overwhelming for you as a parent and for him as an athlete?
It was at first, and it's changed over the years. He's 16 now. It's been a 4-year process. So when we first started, it was figuring out what time of day is he hungry?
Yeah.
Right. And for him back then, it was right when he got home from school. So he'd get home and I would have about 1,000 calories worth of food ready to go. It was like, I'm making homemade burritos. I'm making tacos. It's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It's, noodle dishes, whatever it was. He'd come home and just have whatever it was to choose from, and he could pound food then. And then over the years, he learned how to cook.
Yeah.
And started doing his own, I wouldn't even say meal prep because he doesn't do stuff in advance, but cooks his own breakfast, and breakfast is pretty darn big. It's typically 4 eggs, 2 or 3 slices of toast, a fruit and protein smoothie. And he's making sure he's getting 800 to 1,000 calories before he even steps out the door to school.
Yeah.
One of the other topics that I would love for you to cover is the ancillary benefits that you've seen in Cole with regard to in the classroom, socially, other sports. In other words, it's not like we're trying to create a robot from a baseball perspective. There's a confidence, self-resiliency, overcoming obstacles. It's this mental toughness and discipline that kind of occurs over the course of those 4 years. Can you talk a little bit about that side, or the growth side of Cole over and above the athletic side? Just all of the other things from a maturity standpoint or an accountability standpoint with regard to Cole taking the lead.
We really, I say we because it's the whole family, we became more process oriented. And this lined up really nicely with Cole entering middle school and me saying, all right, I'm not as focused on the results. What I want you to do is figure out, what do you need to do to study, to prep, to do all of these things so that you're ready when you enter high school? Because I want you to have a process in place. If you're trying to figure out how to study when you enter 9th grade, it's too late. So I want you to take these years of 6th, 7th, 8th grade to really figure out, what do I need? What does it take for me? And come up with your own routine. And that's worked with school, with, like I said, cooking for himself, like doing his own laundry, staying on top of that. Like, oh, the bin's getting pretty full and the underwear drawer is getting pretty empty. I need to get on this. we really became a very process-oriented household of, if we just do the right things and we take the right steps, the results tend to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So that's been really impressive to see, because even when he does have, let's say, a setback or, an outcome that he doesn't want, he's usually able to regroup in about a day and say, all right, that didn't turn out the way I wanted, but I'm going to get back to my routine and get back to what's worked and learn from what didn't work and make that part of my process now. It's been really great to see.
Yeah. Now, Mark, that what you're saying is what I hear every day from parents. They'll call me up and say, man, what has happened to my son?
Mm-hmm.
He went from following the meal plan to eating the amount of food he needs. And now he's taking out the trash without me asking. Now he's getting his studies done. His confidence is going through the roof. All these different things is coming together. And the part you mentioned about him cooking his own breakfast and all those things, I tell these parents, you started with Walter at 12. That's phenomenal. And I'm glad Walter brought this to the attention. A lot of parents think that it's too early to start their son on a program or a process at 12. The question I ask those parents is, so when is the right time? Do we wait till 13? Oh, that's still too early. Do we wait till 14? Oh, that's still too early. Before long, they're 16. And Walter can't present them to a college because they're not physically, eye appealing. But a lot of these parents too, they don't understand that, but when they're 16, they got a couple of years left with you and they're going straight out to college. And they don't know how to do their laundry. They don't know how to cook their meals. They don't know how to take care of their body. And so I want to just give you a big compliment and say, man, I'm glad you reached out to Walter, because you not only have put him in a good situation from a recruiting standpoint, because he's not going to have to worry about the physical side. You've also prepared the mental side to be able to accomplish the hurdles that's coming his way. And that's a big thing you have done for your son, Cole. And I cannot wait to watch his future develop. And man, it's got to bring you joy. How does that feel as a father to be able to say, man, I did the right thing. I reached out to Walter and all these things are trending in the right direction? You've got to be a pretty proud dad.
I am. And thank you for that. I'm tremendously proud of him because he's earned it. And it's not to say that other kids haven't, right? But he's earned it. In the backyard, in the kitchen, down the basement, playing wall ball over the winter. He, just the way our circumstances are, financially and time wise, travel ball is not in the cards for us. And he makes sure he's still competitive and earning a spot on his high school team because that's his dream, is playing baseball for his town. And I'm just so proud of him for the work that he's put in to make this happen. It's him.
Well, we are going to discuss what I think is the most relevant part of our discussion with Mark and Cole. We're going to take a quick second to hear our message from our sponsor, and we'll return and ask Mark a few really important questions about Cole's skill set development.
Athletes' electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Corvive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body as an athlete.
Mark, one of the big discussion points with regard to high school athletes is lessons, instruction, camps, showcases. But one of the things that I really take significant interest in when I'm working with student athletes is looking athletes in the eye, because I can tell by looking young athletes in the eye if this is something they're driving their own bus. And one of the most important parts of that, when I first came to your home and spoke with Cole, is he never moved his eyes when I asked him, how important is playing high school and college baseball to you? He looked me dead in the eye and said, extremely. And that was as a 12-year-old. And I said to him, well, a lot of the things that you need to do, you do not need to become reliant on instructors. You don't need me to be with you every week for 30 or 60 minutes. So I would like for you to share the things that Cole does on his own, and I mean over and above a hitting perspective or wall ball. There's so many things that Cole does on a daily basis, regardless of weather, that separates him and allows him to become the versatile athlete that he has become. Can you share some of those things that Cole just simply implements into his daily routine?
Sure. He loves to hit. It's his happy place. So he'll just go up back and toss something up and hit it. It started with wiffle balls and then, small rubber golf balls and then lima beans. And then he decided lima beans were fun, but he couldn't see ball flight. So he went back to the rubber golf balls. So he's been doing those for a while. He probably takes 10 or 15,000 swings a year easily. It's just as part of He's probably taken 70,000 swings over the past 4 years since you told him about self-toss. He plays wall ball. He's not as into that as he is the hitting, but he still does it, especially when track season ends and it's time to get ready for baseball. He has his pancake glove. He has, I relaced the heel of a T-ball glove, and he uses that as an infield trainer because it's smaller. And then he has his regular gloves, so he practices that. He does, receiving stuff off the wall with catching. He learned how to juggle. So he started with 3 balls, and then he got bored, so he'd start walking around the house juggling the 3 balls. And then after a couple of years of that, he said, well, I'm going to try 4. So we found a video on YouTube, and the past couple months, he's been learning to juggle 4 balls and getting progressively better at that. And he makes it fun. And I think that's the cool thing about it is it's self-directed and it's things that he wants to do for fun. As you know, he was homesick from school yesterday, and I knew he was feeling better when the tennis balls came out and he started juggling again. Said, okay, you're going to school tomorrow. You're clearly better. Yeah.
Can he, I got a question for you. Can he juggle 4 balls while he's eating his pancakes in the morning?
No,
that's my question. No, I've got so many compliments I can give you, Mark. I've got to ask you, with him taking on those responsibilities himself, I'm going to go play wall ball. I'm not waiting for dad to find someone to give me a lesson. I'm going to go out and I'm going to hit balls with my bat, throwing them up in the air. My son did that when we lived in Colorado. He hit rocks. That was his thing. He had an old cheap bat, and he'd throw them up and hit. Is that something that was stimulated from you of sitting down with him and talking? Was that kind of a self-interest thing, or did Walter kind of give you guys that direction? And the reason I ask that, I think it's very important for these parents to listen to this message, because with that age, a lot of time we feel like, oh, well, my son can't get better if someone is not driving him to this practice or taking him to listen to this person. And man, I'm telling you, those guys in the Dominican, they're on the street hitting with the broom handle, and they're doing the things that your son is doing. So was that something that was stimulated by you and Walter, or is that a little bit of combination of both? And I think these parents need to hear this over and over, that your son can get better on the back of the wall.
That was Walter.
It's awesome.
That was Walter. We made the family decision that the travel ball wasn't going to be in the cards anymore, but he still wanted to get better. And Walter hopped on the phone with him and said, Ronald Acuna Jr. did not take lessons. He hit bottle caps. Here's what I want you to do.
That's awesome.
And we got off the phone, and Cole said, Dad, do we have a broomstick? So I did. Yeah. Awesome. Had him cut up a broomstick. And I think that was an important part of it too, is he's the one who cut his hit stick. He's the one who did all of this. I saw that he needed that ownership, and he has the passion for it. There's that part of it too. Walter pointed him in the direction, and Cole just started walking.
I think it's important, Jeremy, to understand a couple of things. And I take a lot of pride in those athletes that take action steps. And, Cole is the epitome of the action step young man. And a lot of times we as parents, our lens is like what I call locked in the local, we're following those that have come before us. And, the youth sports has become kind of predatorial. I can teach you how to be a better hitter. I can teach you to be a better pitcher. But at the end of the day, it's no different than academics, homework. We don't have enough homework for our younger student athletes. And the separators at those ages of 12 to 16, a lot of student athletes at those ages will blossom physically early. But yet the ones that are still like what I call in that cocoon and they haven't hit that growth spurt yet, they can really begin to self-absorb and self-teach. And so I used to say to Cole, and Mark and I would laugh based on a movie, dodgeball. If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Well, if you can hit a lima bean with a broomstick, you can hit a baseball with a baseball bat. And so it's just a matter of self-repetition. That self-repetition leads to, retention. And when Mark brings up juggling, I had a parent say to me in a group environment, well, what in the world does that have to do? Like, I agree with everything you just said, but juggling has no relevance to baseball. I said, well, that's completely not accurate because one, eye-hand coordination is all predicated on the mind trusting the hand and the hand trusting the mind. And you're not watching yourself catch a ball. You're not watching yourself, when you toss it up, you're not tracking one. You're tracking the next. And you're trusting that your hands are catching and releasing and the timing. And so there's a lot of discipline from a defensive perspective, from an offensive perspective. And you're teaching your body to work as a cohesive unit. And so when you start to say to someone 30-minute increments, 60-minute increments, or in practice it's 90-minute increments, and you're reliant on adult instructors or coaches, and you're all, we hear this word a lot, Jeremy, development. Mm-hmm. Development is a self-organized, compartmentalized component to you as an individual, and the amount of reps that create that retention. And so for me personally, I was Cole. So I can physically feel when I hear a young man say, I'm getting cut. I didn't make a team. I don't want to be that guy anymore. They're drawing a line in the sand. I lived that. I lived it as a little boy, and I can vividly remember sitting in a room. And when my dad would come out and say, what's wrong? And he basically would say, you have two options. Quit, play soccer, go find something that you can do, or you can work harder and get better. And in today's world, we want to kind of pass that baton of getting better to somebody else, when in reality, I think we as life coaches, I look at Cole and I look at Mark, we're life mentors, and the ebb and flow and the emotions that go with childhood. I think we don't take that in consideration a lot. And we think, okay, baseball or athletics. Well, there's a lot more going on with Pearson, with Cole, when my sons were 12 through 16. And they're going through a lot of external and internal growth. And so I think the number one priority in this type of environment today is 12 through 16, whether it's nutrition, and that plays a huge role. Absolutely. There is no magic wand. The strength training. Yeah, it's cumbersome. Mark, I've said to Mark many times, there were days I had to drive Tyler 45 minutes each way, sit and wait an hour and a half to 2 hours. But I think Mark will be the first one to tell you. And Mark, I want to ask you that question. Let's talk about the life mentors that have become a part of Cole's life, both when he was at 12. People come, people go. But at the end of the day, Cole has now developed a relationship, not only with Cressy, but all of those people that interact and help him make good life decisions, not only on the baseball field, but in the classroom, in life in general. Talk about that side, watching Cole have older brothers, for the lack of a better term, but older mentors that bring more than just baseball discussion.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about him being at Cressy was he ended up getting a job out of it.
Right.
They hired him as their Saturday morning front desk person. And then he picks up extra shifts over the summer, and he'll be getting his license pretty soon. So I'm sure, or I'm hopeful, more hours will come from that as well, now that he can drive himself up there. But just, he has all these people who I feel like are looking out for him and are trying to provide a positive environment for him. And not just him, everyone there, but he's benefiting from it. They're trying to provide a positive environment for all the boys who walk through that front door and come into their gym. This is what it looks like to work hard. This is what it looks like to work toward your goals. And you can be like the kid who rolls in and complains about staying up until 3 a.m. playing Fortnite and doesn't eat enough and doesn't put on weight in 2 years ago into that gym. Or you can be like the guy who steadily improved over 4 or 5 years and ended up going on to play college baseball. And the kids see the difference. Nobody has to point it out to them. Cole comes out to the car, hops in the car and says, yeah, I see what it looks like. I see what it's going to take. It's a tremendous environment for him to be in.
You know, one of the things that I want to say, because I know Jeremy is not going to say this, but I want to let parents know something. And this is from every fiber of my being. And I'm talking now as a dad. I lived this whole entire process from the age of 8 all the way and still living it through the age of 33 with my youngest son. Jeremy Fouts, and I have gone through many, many people over the course of 25 years. I've worked exclusively with regard to strength. I trust 3 people, Eric Cressy, Ben Fairchild, Mike Reinold. But when it comes to meal prep, and it comes to nutrition, and it comes to development of a young athlete's body, Jeremy Fouts. Now, I've only known Jeremy for a little less than a year, and I have seen results. I could tell you stories that are actually happening from 2025 to 2026, where athletes that I have referred to Jeremy Fouts, I get comments like, I can't believe how quick that guy must be on the phone, because every time I've ever sent them a message, within 5 minutes, I get something back. I have parents that have freshmen in high school that had no inkling that their student athletes would sniff varsity. And I'm talking about in states like Florida and Georgia and Louisiana. And their student athletes have gone from 143 to 165, 170, and are now playing varsity. It's not magic. And so the whole purpose of today is really to hear from a parent that has lived this recently, that is now on the other side going into that junior year in high school. He's on deck, to really getting an understanding for you as parents, and more importantly, as student athletes. The reality is you need to be aware of what is going to serve your student athletes and build a foundation, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to play more games, going to do more tournaments, going to do more showcases, because that ultimately leaves you in a spot where you get to your junior year, you're undersized, your skill sets may be there, but they don't have the proper fuel or foundation. So the critical years are 12 to 16. And for you as parents to have access to someone like Jeremy, knowing that he has sons that are high school athletes on the cusp of being college athletes. We've heard from Mark, who had an athlete starting 11 and a half, 12, and now is 16. The number one thing to do is have a purpose and a plan and take action steps. And Jeremy, I'm sure you would agree, the sooner that you take those action steps at that 12 or 13 to help build your foundation. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen in a year. You're not going to be a varsity athlete just because you gain, 50 pounds. But what you will have is a high school career and an opportunity to participate in college. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. I've got a boy down in Georgia, and he actually come to me through you also, by listening to one of your podcasts, Walter. His name is Charlie Williams in Georgia, 8th grader. He come to me December at 110 pounds. He's 135 pounds now. But listen here, he's grown 2 inches as well. And it's changed his whole life. I mean, so it goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. These parents say, well, he might be too young at 12. Well, when is the right time? The perfect time is at 12, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I know Mark can probably testify that Cole probably didn't follow, everything perfect from day one, but he started that routine that he's talked about, which led into now he's cooking, now he's doing his laundry, which again, it's a whole process that you teach, Walter, which is phenomenal. It gets these athletes' minds right and says the potential is real and I can achieve that. And so 100%, the quicker they get started, when I'm working with the younger athletes, Walter, that like you send me, I'm like 12, 13, I'm like, you don't want to be worrying about weight your junior year. You just want to be developing those skills. Most of them, like you said, they have the skills, but they don't have the size. They don't have the speed. They're not going to be looked at, as hard as it may seem for these parents to understand that. So I've just got to say, Walter, you've done a phenomenal job with Cole. I love these type stories. And Mark, for you as a parent to trust that process and say, yeah, I'm going to listen to Walter. He knows what he's talking about. He's been there and done that with his 2 boys. He's going to give us the right information. We're not going to chase the showcases and chase the things. We're going to follow the process. I love what you said, Mark, is we're not worried about the results today. We're just going to keep doing the work, and we're going to keep doing the work. And Cole has got a phenomenal future ahead of him. And I've just got to say, to me, that's my passion, Walter. The William Highsmith stories, your athlete you sent to me that we was talking about before we started, all those different ones, that's my passion. I love it. When I work with an elite college guy or pro guy, it's business, but these younger athletes is where my true passion is. And you and Mark together has joined up and gave Cole a very, very bright future, and I cannot wait to watch it.
Well, I think, and I've been blessed that Mark, we maintain I think a lot of parents see this as a business transaction. And what I try to get parents to understand, this isn't business. This is more along the lines of altering a young athlete and getting them to understand that their destination is determined by them. Don't worry about pleasing other people. Really have your purpose, your sense of understanding of where your future, where you want to go. And first of all, Mark, and I'm not going to go down a path, but you do things very uniquely. You are the epitome of a proud dad, but between Emmy and Cole, you have 2 award-winning children. And Cole will be a college student athlete because he has taken the necessary guidance from you and allow him to understand it's not results. It's about purpose. It's about pride. And it's about making sure that you have a plan. So thank you so much, Mark, for taking the time to join Jeremy and I. It's a really powerful story that I hope a lot of parents will take away. The message is, plan early, take action steps with your plan, and trust your plan.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
You're very, very welcome. And I want parents to understand, take the time to reach out to Jeremy, Corvive Corp, Jeremy Fouts. You can find him. Jeremy's very active on the TikTok and the Instagram and Facebook. And also, there's a product that we do not spend enough time on, hydration for children. And I'm talking about children as young as 5 or 6 years old. A lot of times we'll run into a store and get Gatorade or Powerade or any number of those products. But proper hydration for fuel, energy, Sustainability, young athletes, we think they're just full of energy and they're just going to last all day. Hydration is a very big topic with young athletes, 5 all the way up and through 12, 13 years old. Corvive Corp has a hydration product specifically for children, really active with the Dozier family. Hunter Dozier, who was with the Kansas City Royals for a number of years. Jeremy and Hunter live in Texas, as do my boys. It gets hotter than Haiti in Texas. But I encourage parents, look up all of the products that you can find at Corvive and look for Jeremy on all of the social media platforms. And Jeremy, I'm looking forward to our next discussion with regard to the process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Walter. Mark, done an awesome job with Walter. Tip my hat to, again, what you've done to another incredible athlete. So thank you for me being a part of it.
Thank you.
Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hot product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by Corvive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body.